how this could be of a sort of geopolitical advantage to deploy in these kinds of places, or do you think that's just fanciful rock star nonsense
to deploy
this kind of thing as into
these projects
in South Sudan and those
sure.
kind, rolling them out? Because it's kind of like what you've been talking about for a while, and if maybe you'd start by explaining your equation, because you got to hear his equation
in terms of the impact on stability.
Sure. Well, you and I have talked for years about a concept for engagement in the 21st century, and in my view there's three components to it. One is security. Obviously that's a prerequisite. The other is accompanied that with economic development and governance and rule of law. And one of the things that makes Rwanda such a great place is it has all three, as you pointed out. So my view is that you combine that theory, and there's a lot of subsets to that, but with a real application of what in our country we're lacking, in my view, which is public-private coordination and partnership to make projects like this happen. Right now they seem to happen by exception rather than by the rule. And I think for the United States, its presence in Africa I think is absolutely essential. And I think to have a formula that works is the right way to go. And so here you have people representing NGOs, you have people representing the U.S. Congress, you have retired general, you have entrepreneurs. It's the combination of these things that work. And so I really think that there's a program that you and I have developed called Partnership for Prosperity. And the main elements are very, very understandable and very reasonable. They just have to be applied holistically. In the case of the U.S. government, using a multi-agency approach that spans not just the Defense Department, which is what we usually do, and not just the State Department, but the Department of Commerce, the Department of Energy, and we need a more rapid way to do these things and to get on it, because this is the way you change people's lives, and this is the way you avoid Boko Haram and ISIS and how you give people hope. And people in Rwanda have hope because of something like this, and we need to do that elsewhere.
Can I ask, how important, General, is power to economic development, and how important is economic development to holding back extremism?
I think it's crucial. It all comes down to education, but you can educate people, but if you don't provide a framework for hope for the future, that when they look at their children that they're going to have a better life as a result of a certain project, whether it's water or whether it's power, just simple things like roads and electricity, but security also. So you have to combine it and where you need it, and Rwanda is a good example because they seem to be doing quite well in security, but economic development and they're doing well in governance and rule of law. But there are countries neighboring Rwanda that need all three of those things, and so you're not going to apply the formula everywhere the same way, but it's analytically possible to figure out what you need to do in order to make a difference.
So I'd love to work with you to figure out how we change our investment paradigm as a country so that we can capture the value of what they're doing here in a way that stabilizes regions, not just in Africa, but around the world, that are really sources.
But we have people in our government now for the first time that really get this. I think Secretary Pritzker over at Commerce gets it. Secretary of Energy Moniz gets it. The U.S. Trade Rep gets it. So I think there's a possibility.
But the question, which is how to roll out this kind of project, where does that budget come from? And of course the private piece. But some of the times we go to get development monies, and we know that's a pie that isn't growing at the moment. And so the reason I thought you, General, would have real insight is it possible that you could go, or is it possible and is it desirable that you go to the defense budget and you say, look, here's a way of preventing the fires rather than having the expense of putting them out later. Here's a way of deploying rapidly, because that's what was so impressive about what you guys were doing, is the speed of it. And you're eating up bureaucracies and just breaking through them. And I just imagine the Sahel as this difficult region where all these problems are right across Sudan, northern Nigeria, into El Shabaab. In fact, there's a geological phenomenon. It goes all the way to Afghanistan. If you really want to think about the Sahel like that, it's not officially called that, but that's what it is geologically. But I'm just thinking, if you could move fast, where would you get the money from? You can bring in private industry, that's essential, but the startup money, the real cash, these guys were scrapping for their money. But the defense budget is being reimagined. You have suggested that the United States needs to think different about its military, and I just think, is that ever a day where the defense budget could be used to support these kind of technological innovations?
Yeah, well, I think so, but I also think that we need to do a better job at helping American business get settled, get established. We make it very hard. I mean, our laws and our policies sometimes work against our own businesses. So we need to make it much simpler, and this is why I'm high on Penny Pritzker, because she really gets that, and she understands that
she's remarkable.
The private sector of the United States government is as important to our foreign policy as the Defense Department, in my view, for in the 21st century.
The private sector engagement through the Department of Commerce.
Exactly.
Can leverage huge.
So
was that an okay or maybe on the defense budget?
No, I think it's fair, and I'm on the Defense Policy Board for Secretary Carter, and we've urged him to look at ways in which we can trim some of the fat in the defense budget, some of the manpower costs that are just skyrocketing, and that's a separate problem, but they have to be controlled. I mean, otherwise, we're going to have an army of people drawing big salaries, and we can't buy anything.
It's cheaper to give people hope through projects like this than later to try to mitigate the threats as they're happening. So,
how much did this cost?
$24 million.
24 million for 6% of the 20%
investment by the United States was $400,000.
Right.
That was the Kickstarter.
That
The
is
leverage is huge.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you all.
Okay, I want the ambassador over here because she's gorgeous.
You can say that and get away with it.